All right, everyone. The clock is 11, at least here in Sweden, Stockholm. So it's time to kick off our Get Skypexit Down session here at Teams Fest. So I will be talking to you about how you can move from Skype for Business to Teams. And as you probably get, that this Skypexit is referring to the Brexit circus, maybe I should call it. I know Brexit was a few months ago, so and other things have happened during that time. So it's maybe not that on people's top of the head at the moment, but still we're living in the moving from Skype to Teams reality for now, and that's our reality for many customers that I'm helping. And the goal with this session is to show you that it doesn't have to be as complicated as the Brexit. We don't need to have project managers retire and come new online and stuff like that. So with the right approach to this, it could be a fairly easy and positive thing to do. All right, and my name is Mårten Hellebro. I work for Cloudway as a cloud architect. So this is what I do. Oh, crap! What's this? Oh my! Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Right. Yes. Let's see.
And this is your video as well.
Sorry, that was my April Fool's you. So yeah, we're back on track. Sorry about that. As I said, my name is Mårten Hellebro. I work for Cloudway as a cloud architect. I'm also an MVP. I'm running the MS Teams Swede blog about Teams, Skype for Business. I run a user group here in Sweden. I also organized the Teams Dagen, which is a Teams conference held a few weeks back. Also run the Swedish user group, Unified Communication User Group. And you have my Twitter account there and also my email and of course Teams address that you can reach out to me after this session. So please ask questions in the chat and we can hopefully have time at the end addressing questions, or if it's urgent, just unmute yourself and we will take it from there. All right, for me, this journey started with Link Server 2010, quite a few years back. That's when I started in this Microsoft Unified Communication business. I was in the telephony business before that with call and contact centers. Moving over to Link Server, that evolved into Link 2013, over to Skype for Business, and now last year Skype for Business Server 2019 was released. And during that time, of course, Microsoft Teams was launched. I believe, it's been 3 years now, like last week or so. And it's been a rapid development for Teams, as you probably all knew by now. And if you look closely to this picture, you can see that the line on the road for Skype for Business is actually stops at the Skype for Business Server 2019. But for Teams, it's continuing, it's running. So we will see what happened on that, but it's very clear that it's Teams for the win now. And Teams is the fastest growing app in Microsoft history. And these are old numbers. Things happen very fast now. This summer, they announced 13 million daily users. This autumn, I think it was in November, says 20 million people. And now, like last week, they announced 44 million people every day using Microsoft Teams. So that's a very rapid evolvement of Microsoft Teams. And who is in charge of the digital transformation? because Teams is a big part of the digital transformation. Is it a CIO? Is it a CEO? What do you think? At least these days, it's COVID-19 that actually drives the digital transformation. I guess you're all familiar with that, and that also gives us a huge possibility to have this transition moving forward. But before COVID-19, we had the other driving factor, which is also a driving factor now as well, is that Skype for Business Online is retiring in next summer, July 2021. So this is something that we need to relate to. So how do we get Skypexit done? Well, there's a couple of things that we need to take in account when we do this. First of all, of course, it's planning. We need to plan to know that what we are moving away from and what we are moving into. And on that journey, we need to manage the different modes that we can have Skype and Business working together. We will go into that in more details later. On this journey, somewhere we need to take in account that we will be using Skype and Teams at the same time. There will be some time frame with interop between Skype and Teams. And we also need to set up the approach. Are we doing a hard or a soft Skypexit, deal or no deal? Are we crashing out of Skype, or are we taking it in a more structured way? Perhaps leaving all the politics out of it, but I don't know, that's a tough one. Technical aspects, yeah, how do we actually execute the move from Skype to Teams? We will look into that also. And at the end of this session, I will go through some lessons learned that me and my colleagues at Calway have encountered and worked with and handled during our Skypexit projects that we have been delivering throughout the last couple of years, I would say, and provide some resources for guidance and training as well. So we're going straight into the planning phase. Yeah, we need to know what we are leaving, and that means devices, headsets, conference equipment, stuff like that. And in general, I can say everything that is Skype certified will also work perfectly in Teams. And if you don't have Skype or Teams certified devices out there, this is the time to get it out there, to get the experience right from the beginning. For the telephony part, we need to, of course, know what we are leaving and what we are moving into. And when it comes to telephony and Teams, there will be other sessions during today that talk more about this, but with either direct routing or calling plans for Teams, you can have pretty much all your telephony needs within Microsoft Teams. And also now there are coming call and contact center solutions for like native Teams, which is very exciting. We have been waiting for that for quite some time, but now it's happening. So if you haven't looked at that, look at that and add that to your planning. Meeting rooms. Yes, if you have Skype meeting rooms, you need to look into what models they are and what functions. Some of them can be upgraded to Teams meeting room, MTRs, Microsoft Teams room. Some of them need to have some hardware replacement that can be done for a fairly cheap amount of money, or some can't be upgraded, so you need to look into buying new Microsoft Teams room systems to get your meeting rooms upgraded as well. So that requires some planning as well. And also the Office 365 governance, that's a very important piece to get the compliance and security all working together. Because only when governance rules the galaxy, Teams can be the emperor. I mean, if they're not those rebel scums to the right there, they find their way to get through the security and governance features setting up. Either if it's too tight, locked down, they will be finding other services or solutions that work for them. Or if it's too loose, things will happen within the Teams or in the SharePoint Office 365 groups that is not good. So you need to get the governance straight so you can be safe in that you have a Microsoft Teams environment that works for users and it's not breaking any rules and the users are not either by mistake doing wrong or by intention. All right, what happens if you don't do anything? Well, Skype on-prem will remain for several years, so you're not forced to do anything there if you don't want to. If you're a new customer coming into Office 365, as for now or as for a few months back, you will not get Skype for Business in Office 365. You will get Teams only, which is good. And of course, end of July next summer, Skype for Business will be shut down. So you need to do anything before that. Otherwise, you will be, I don't think you will be get stranded, but I guess you will be cut over by force, perhaps. And Microsoft has been for quite a while now scheduling customers that they think are ready for going into Teams only mode, which is called when you just using Teams and not Skype for Business. And this effort will increase. That's my understanding. So Microsoft will force or encourage you to switch over to Teams in a more rapid way than before. And of course, if you don't do anything, you miss all that's good with Microsoft Teams. And there's a lot of good stuff there that we want to use. But just make sure that we do it in the right way, in the right pace. Skype for Business and Teams, or actually Skype for Business Online and Teams, can be described as two separate islands living in like perfect harmony. You can see there's a little boat going from the Teams island over to the Skype island. And in the background, we have the mainland. Could be Office 365. We have the city over there. It could be like Azure Active Directory. And then we have SharePoint Online and Exchange Online going there in the background. And yeah, living in some kind of a perfect harmony. But here somewhere we need to decide when we are doing how we're going to move this Skype over to Teams. And to our help, we have a quite different modes to choose from. For one side, we have the Skype for Business only, which is basically you're just using Skype. And on the other side of the scale, you have Teams only, when you're, of course, only using Skype. Oh, sorry, Teams. But in between there, we have what's called Islands mode, which is when Teams and Skype are working together at the same time, side by side, living happily side by side. And then we also have two Skype for Business modes, which is we have Skype for Business running with full functionality. And then in the first, with Teams collaboration, in Teams, we only activate the collaboration mode or module or a modality, which is the team Teams and channel modality. And also we have the Skype for Business with Teams collaboration and meetings, which means that we activate in Teams the Teams channel and Teams, and also the Teams meeting. At the same time, we cannot disable functions in Skype for Business. It's not designed to do that. But in Teams, we have the option to add features as we move along. And here's a chart describing the different modes. If we start looking at top left-hand side, Skype for Business only. Yeah, it's only Skype. Teams is deactivated, and we have IM chat in Skype, of course, meeting in Skype, and telephony in Skype. In Islands mode, as I said, they're running side by side with full functionality on both. We have chat in Skype and Teams. We have meetings in Skype and Teams, and we have telephony in Skype and Teams. So it's basically the two worlds living together. With Skype for Business with Teams collaboration, as I said, we only activate the Teams and channel in Microsoft Teams, which means that IM chat stays in Skype, meeting stays in Skype, and telephony stays in Skype. With Skype for Business with Teams collaboration and meetings, we activate again Teams and channels in Teams, and we have chat still in Skype. We have meetings in Skype and Teams, and telephony is in Skype. And then, of course, the end goal here is to move into Teams only mode, where Teams handles all the different modalities. And this is how we look in the Teams client when you are either in Islands mode or Teams only mode. We can see that we have all the modalities activated in the left ribbon. We have chat, Teams, calendar, and calls. When in Skype for Business with Teams collaboration and meetings, we can see that the chat modality is removed. So we only have Teams and calendar there. And also, if you look at the Skype for Business collaboration, this is the mode without the meeting. It looks the same. You can see we still have calendar there, and we can even go into the calendar and click on new Teams meeting. But since we're not activating meetings in Teams, we will get this pop up. Probably not the best user experience, but that is what it is at the moment, at least. In Islands mode, we have both Skype meetings and Teams meeting available in Outlook. So you are able to choose what kind of meeting you want to invite to. In Skype for Business collaboration and meetings, in Outlook, the Skype meeting is removed. You're still able to do Skype meetings, but not through Outlook. And in Skype for Business collaboration, that is the one without the Teams meeting, it will be only Skype meetings. Interop between Skype and Teams. Somewhere, as I said, on this journey, we end up in having to deal with Skype and Teams running at the same time. Because the migration path looks like you either have Link server on-prem or Skype for Business server on-prem. Then you need to move your users to Skype Online. And you do that by setting up a Skype hybrid. And once you have the Skype users online, you can move them into Teams mode. Some of the Teams mode you want. And as I said, somewhere on this journey, you need to handle those two Skype and Teams running at the same time. And then we will come into the interop phase where we have to make a decision or handle the fact that Skype meetings can only be accessed through a Skype client, and that's only Skype. So you cannot, with a Teams client, join a Skype meeting. And also that goes the other way around. If it is a Teams meeting, you cannot join that with a Skype client. What will happen if you have users using the different clients? They will join through a web access instead. And when speaking about meetings, we also had a meeting migration service, which is an Office 365 service that helps us when moving users from either Skype on-prem or Skype online to Teams to automatically update our meeting invites. The join URL from a Skype meeting is not the same as for a Teams meeting. So if we move users from either Skype on-prem to Skype online, they will get a new join meeting URL, and also from Skype online to Teams, also get a new join URL. So this meeting migration service will actually handle that for us to run through all the meetings and send out meeting updates. So that's good. Presence, I mean, available, busy, in a call. They need to be like synchronized between Skype for Business and Teams. And in Skype for Business, I think we are like very spoiled about how presence works. It's instantly updating through all the different devices. Between Skype and Teams is not that instant as we are used to in Skype. Microsoft is working on it, and it has been way much better now than it has been in the past. And there is actually more work being done to make it even faster to update the presence in both directions, both from your Teams presence updated in Skype and vice versa. All right, it is some problems when sharing screens between a Skype client and a Teams client because they cannot share a screen with each other. So what happens if you are in a one-to-one chat and one uses Teams and another one uses Skype, you will share a screen. Well, it will actually open up either a Skype meeting or Teams meeting, and you will meet there where you have all the modalities. Contacts, yeah, your Skype contacts will be updated in Teams once you are set in the Teams only mode. Then you will see your Skype contacts end up in your Teams client. Yeah. Chat and calls, that's a typical interop thing that we do between Skype and Teams. And I will show you and I will walk you through the different experience with different experience when you have the interop. We have one user on Skype, another user on Teams. And here you see at the top row, we have internal communication that is within the organization. And at the bottom, we have external communication, which means that we are communicating with the external user outside the organization that will be either using Skype or Teams. So yeah, we'll go through this and I'll talk you through this. Here we can see at the very left, we have the originator, the person or user starting this conversation. That user could be either in islands mode and using either of the client Teams or Skype for Business. And this also reflects on where your Skype for Business is homed. Are you Skype online or Skype on-prem? And at the right-hand side, you see the recipient. In this case, the recipient is in islands mode. And remember, this is internally within the organization. So for example, if a user starts a chat conversation, that user is on the left. If that user is in islands mode and using Teams and the Skype for Business home online, the recipient will get the communication, the chat message, for example, in Teams. And also, if the person starting the conversation is in Teams only mode, it will just use Teams as a client and it will end up in the recipient Teams, even though the recipient is in island mode. So there's quite a few different variations here to keep in mind. And if we move on, we can see that if the originator is in, the recipient in this case is in any of the Skype for Business mode, and we, for example, start a conversation in a user in islands mode using Teams, and that conversation will end up at the recipients in Skype for Business. Well, that's not so weird, because the recipient is using Skype for Business with either Teams collaboration or Teams collaboration and meetings. So that user is not using Teams for chat. But one thing to take a note here is that if the user is starting a conversation or in islands mode using Teams client, and their Skype for Business is hosted on-prem, the recipient will not receive that communication while in Skype for Business collaboration mode. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Also, moving on to the third one here, if the recipient is in Teams only mode, it means all the conversation will end up in Teams. So that's great. Right, moving on to the external part. This is where we are communicating with an external party outside the organization. So in this case, we have the recipient is in islands mode, and the originator starts using in islands mode using Teams. The conversation, the chat or call, will end up in Skype for Business. And you can see that's the same case for all different communications when the recipients are external. So all communication will end up using Skype for Business when it's external. Also, one thing to take note here is that if you're in islands mode using Skype for Business on-prem, the conversation will not reach the recipient. And moving on here, we will go through this quickly. We see the same thing if the recipient is in any of the Skype for Business mode. It will not work when it's island modes user using Teams with Skype on-prem. But here we can see that the recipient is in Teams only mode. That means all the chats and call will end up in the Teams client. So that's good, but we will still have the problem with the island mode user using Teams and Skype for Business on-prem. So this is quite a few different scenarios, and it's maybe you notice it's difficult even for me to explain to you the different features here, when it works, when it doesn't work. So, and how do we communicate that to the users? That is a tricky part to explain, why it's working in some cases and not in other cases. But then I would like to introduce you to the meeting first approach. With chat disabled in Teams, all interrupt confusions goes away. At least much of it, because we disable the chat feature in Teams, which means that we take out Teams from the chat and calling equation. That means it will only end up in using Skype for Business for that. And what mode will that be? You remember? Well, it will be the Skype for Business with Teams collaboration and meetings, because then we have activated all features in Teams, but without activating the chat. So the chat remains in Skype, which also means that users continue to use Skype for chatting with external and making one-to-one calls. And then when users are ready, we move them into Teams only mode, because then they have started working with Teams, get familiar with it. And then when everyone is ready, we switch them over to Teams only mode. And then we don't have that interop mess that it could easily be otherwise. So that's a good approach to keep in mind if you want to limit the confusion around Skype and Teams interop. Moving forward, yes, we are in Teams only. We have blinds down on Skype. We are in Skypexit. What we will notice is that when we start our Skype for Business client, which is still installed on our PC, we will get the friendly information saying that your organization is now using Microsoft Teams. Yay! And from there, we can go to Teams and start it up and work from there. But what we also can do is that we can start Skype for Business. It will look something like this. You can see that you only have access to your history and to your meetings. And also, again, a friendly reminder that we are now using Microsoft Teams. So please open Microsoft Teams instead. This limited version of Skype for Business is used mainly to access Skype for Business meetings that you have been already invited to. As I said a few minutes back, you can still join Skype for Business meeting even though you are a Teams user, but in that case you will use the Skype for Business web experience for joining Skype meetings. So it's optional to keep the Skype for Business client installed even after you are in Teams only mode. Yeah, if you're having a lot of Skype meetings, it could be a good thing to keep it at least for a while. But my recommendation is to try to get it uninstalled from the computer as soon as possible, because Skype for Business, the client will interfere with Teams when it comes to headset functionality, answer and mute buttons even on certified headsets. So try to get the Skype for Business client uninstalled from the PC as fast as possible. So here we are at the Skypexit. How should we do this? Should we do a soft Skypexit, islands mode and side by side? Are we going that soft way, or are we doing the hard way, like no deal Skypexit? It's Teams only from now on. Well, when you're deciding that, you need to be humble because all organizations are different. It doesn't come to size, it doesn't come to like geographic spread. So all organizations are different. So take it from case by case. And also, how are we handling the interop between Skype and Teams? It can be quite resource demanding and time consuming to inform the users of the different experience while in this interop mode between Skype and Teams. That could also be a big factor to weigh in here. And Microsoft's focus is not to make the interop better. That's my impression, at least. They are focusing on doing the Teams experience better, not try to make Skype to better interop with Teams. So don't go hope that the interop feature will be better. Just try to get out of it as soon as possible. And these days, with working from home, phase that we have now. We see a rapid transition due to the new working habits. What normally took like months in planning and discussion now being carried out in weeks and maybe days sometimes. So things are happening really fast, and we need to adjust to that. And that could be in favor of the hard way of doing the faster approach to the hard Skypexit. Right. How to execute the actual move into the different Skype for Business, or sorry, into the Teams modes. Well, we have the Teams Admin Center. Here we can set either the entire organization to either of the coexistence mode, as it's called, or we can do it by user. We can also use PowerShell, of course, and try to not be like creative to remove the Skype Online license for a user, because Skype Online, at least for now, is still using in the background. So just put them in the different coexistence mode, leave the licenses as they are. And this can also be scheduled through the admin center. And if you want to do the PowerShell way, here you have the command to make everyone in Teams only mode at one time. So when you run that, you're done. Your Skypexit is done. Of course, it can be further controlled by using user or group by group or country by country. And there's also the different modes that you can set in by the different policy names. Ta-da! Skypexit is done. Well, that was easy peasy, right? Just PowerShell, everyone is upgraded Teams only mode. Right. So, some lessons learned from when me and my colleagues at Cloudway have been doing Skypexit projects for last few years. This is what we have encountered during those projects. There is delays in Office 365, and sometimes it can be up to 48 hours delay, especially when it comes to voice and setting new voice policies and stuff like that. So we tend to do at least voice migrations or voice transitions at like Friday afternoon. And then we'll set everything up and execute everything, and then we'll have sometimes during the weekend to get replicated and applied in Office 365. New features and functions are coming to Teams. Perhaps you noticed. Yeah, new features and functions are coming all the time, but it's impossible to know exactly when they are hitting your tenant, when you're seeing the new features. So that means you need to have a good change management organization to handle that. And also, when the new features and functions come, they are pretty much always enabled by default. So that could come by surprise sometimes. If your on-prem Active Directory is not in order, it will probably, that will cause problems when you start syncing stuff with Azure Active Directory, especially when it comes to Exchange Hybrid. So make sure you have your on-prem Active Directory also in good shape before starting the move. And this is interesting. This is a discussion that we many times have with customers, and it's quite hard to win this discussion about, well, we have this in Skype for Business, how does it work in Teams? Can I do this in Teams as I used to be doing in Skype for Business? So what we are trying to do is try to talk with the customer and explain to them that Teams is not Skype. That's two different things. I tend to describe Teams. I use the term like, do not compare pears with apples, but in this case, do not compare the pear as in Skype with a fruit basket, which is Teams, because Teams can do so much more than Skype can, never will be able to. So try to avoid that discussion in comparing Skype with Teams. Teach the users or the customer what's more in Teams. And also what the customer's driving factor for implementing Teams. I've been in quite a few implementation where telephony have been the driving factor, and that did not end well most of the time. Because as I said, Teams is so much more than Skype for Business is. You need to get the whole thing around what Teams is, and how to like drive the digital transformation with Teams. And one way of doing this is to anchor, like this is how we are going to work with Teams and channels and meetings using Teams. So get that sorted and communicated into the business. And also, as you probably are familiar with, is the resistance to change. Yeah, that's the reality many times we face out at customers. We tell users how to do and they like, what? No, I don't want to do that. And why? So user adoption is a key success factor here. And now with these COVID-19 days, we have a huge opportunity, a big window open to make a good and yeah, to make a rapid transition from Skype to Teams. And also, Teams is not an IT project. It's more of a cultural change, like a digital transformation project. That should not be run by the IT project, at least not that's our experience. Of course, IT is involved and be a big part of it, but the driving factor should be somewhere else. And there's a lot of work that must be done in the user adoption area here. And here on Teams Fest, we have a whole room dedicated to user adoption. So there's some great sessions there that you should definitely look into. And when implementing Teams, start with chat, that is like chatting in Teams and channels, and meetings and files. So start with those three things and then you pause. Because if you starting with everything at the same time with SharePoint integrations, you have bots and connectors and tabs and everything at the same time, it will be confusing for the users. And you will, if you're not successful with the first three, chat, meeting, and files, you will not be successful with the other ones. So pause and then move on later. And this comes to the project success criteria. You need to know when you're ready, when you're done, so you can move into the next phase. And that's also where monitoring and follow-up comes in place. There are great monitoring reports that you can find in the Teams Admin Center and also in the Teams itself to see how it's using. It's also possible to build your own reports to have report things in Graph API with all different kinds of good stuff. And finally, I'm about to wrap up here. Are we using islands mode or are we not using islands mode? Yeah, that's a big question. I used to compare it with removing a plaster. You can either do it slow and it will be painful, little painful all the time, or you can do it fast and have a quick pain and then will go away quickly. And I cannot tell you what to do, but this is something that we need to be discussing and considering in all different projects. Some resources for guidance and training. There are some good resources here for like the Skype to Teams move, upgrade success kit with stuff that you can download and edit to have like communicating about the move. There are also some training and demo and Microsoft's fast track that can be really helpful. Also a champions program. I will not go into that today. I have other sessions that I spoke about. Teamwork champions. Yeah, successwithteams.com, also a great resource. And also I want to point out that Twitter blogs and community like this Teams Fest today, that's a great resource for help and information on how it's actually working. Because not everything that Microsoft produce in terms of like training and guidance and stuff like that are actually what we see as consultants in this business. So reach out to the community to get some real from the field experience of this. We have reached the light at the end of the tunnel. We have reached our Skypexit. Thank you, Link. Thank you, Skype for Business. Forgiven, not forgotten. We had our ups and downs. We had our moments for sure, but now it's Teams only for the win. And some key takeaways from this session. Make sure you do your planning right. It could be a fast planning, but just make sure that you plan everything. Master the different modes. Know when to use islands mode, the pros and cons of that. Meeting first approach. Don't forget about that. And also get existence. Get help from people that are doing this like on a daily basis with experience from different customers instead of you sitting there for the first time trying to do your own organization's Skypexit. Get some help, that's my recommendation. And also remember that Teams is not Skype. Skype is not Teams. So try not to end up in those discussions with clients. So thank you very much for listening to this session. I hope it was great. I haven't been able to follow the chat. I know my colleague Ståle has been answering there. Please reach out to me in the chat window now or at Twitter. And also, I'll be happy if you fill out the evaluation and rate my session here. And if you have questions, please unmute yourself. And thank you very much for listening. And don't forget to listen to other great sessions today at Teams Fest. Thank you very much.